Today I'm going to check the specs on this battery to see if what they claim is actually true. Stay tuned for the pros and cons of the Oupes 600W battery. Hey guys, welcome back to Minivan Camper Gal. I'm Kelly and I make videos about camping in my van, cooking in my van, traveling in my van, and of course, gadgets for the van. I'm learning more and more about how to review and test portable battery systems, and I can't wait to show you all about this Oupes battery. Make sure you check the description for some discount codes. Let me tell you the most interesting points first. This is a lithium iron phosphate battery, which is a much better battery than lithium ion. With lithium iron phosphate, you get many more cycles, which is how many times the battery can discharge and charge back up. This power station has 3,600 cycles and more than 10 years of battery health. And lithium iron phosphate is safer than lithium ion, especially with high temperatures like it might experience inside a van. The other really standout feature of this battery is that it has a BMS, or battery management system. Basically, it has a little computer chip inside that is monitoring the battery temperature, protecting it if it gets too hot, shutting the battery off if it gets too low, protecting the battery if there's an overload, basically acting like a little battery babysitter, which protects your investment. It can run devices up to 600 watts with 1,000 watt surge protection, and it can run devices for 595 watt hours. The cables that came with it are pretty standard. You can plug in up to 8 devices at a time. The screen only shows either input or output. Unfortunately, not both. It shows whichever number is higher. It also has a light in the back, which has a couple of settings, including an SOS pattern, which is pretty cool. I also really like that it has rubber feet. I had a battery take a nasty fall from my shelves while driving my van the other day, which is really scary. So the rubber on this is really grippy, and the sides are also grippy, so they'll hold on to bungee cords better than just a slick plastic surface. Okay, let's get to the spec check. How accurate are Oupes' claims? First off, charging. They claim that the battery can charge in 3.5 hours from 0 to 80% using 2 power inputs. I'm going to be using a USB-C cable into here, and make sure if you're using a brick, this is a MacBook 30 watt charger, and this is a 65 watt charger. So that's going to make double the difference in how much power goes in this outlet. And in the side goes the AC adapter that comes with the unit. All right, and it's just about 7:30, so let's see if it can do it. All right guys, it's just about 11 o'clock and just over 80%. So the specs are right on this, even a little bit better than they say. The battery charged up in just under 3.5 hours, which is really fast. So yes, their rating is accurate. Just remember, if this is important to you, make sure you get the 60 watt power brick for the USB-C. Okay, the next test, solar charging. 0 to 80% in 7.5 hours. I used one of my favorite panels, the Yargo 100 watt panel. There was hardly a cloud in the sky. The sun rose at 5:30, so I started charging it at 8 a.m. All right guys, it's been 7.5 hours. Let's check the battery. So I've got 2 solar panels going here, one going into the USB-C, trying to maximize our wattage, and we're only at 69%. I was having a really hard time getting this input to get above 60 at all. Even when I plug in other batteries to these same panels, they're getting more than 60. So I'm not sure why it doesn't want to accept more than 60. We'll give it a little bit more time because there was maybe a half an hour or so where one of the panels was unplugged. So let's give it a little bit more time. Let's see how long it takes to actually get up to 80. Alright guys, so it's been 8.5 hours. The battery is at 74%, which is not 80%, but there was a little bit of user error because my plug came out a couple times when I didn't realize it. And my solar panels probably could have been optimized a little bit more. But other than that, it's been a completely clear day, all day, no clouds. So I've had plenty of sun. I'd say 0 to 80% in 7.5 hours is probably accurate. Okay, so I've got the two panels hooked in parallel now. So I've got some adapters. And now we're getting, I don't know if you can see, 112 watts in. So that's a big difference. That's double the 60 that I was getting. So with that input, it probably would take even less than 7.5 hours. Now it's time to test the output. I used a 60-watt Edison light bulb to test how long it would run. When I plugged the light bulb into a watt meter, it said 54 watts were being drawn out, which matched up exactly to the Oupes display, which is often not the case with these batteries. So it's great that the display is accurate. The light bulb ran for 8 hours and 15 minutes. So 8.25 hours times 54 watts equals 445.5 watt hours, which is not 595. But the inverter uses about 15% of the power capacity. Also, when the battery switched off, the display said 0%, but when I turned it back on, it said 9%. So let's say it had 10% left. So if we subtract 25% off the watt hours, then the runtime lines up with Oupes' numbers exactly. So it's important to note that if you're going to be using devices on the AC outlets, this uses the inverter and your battery capacity will be lowered at least 15%. And the more watts your device is pulling, the sooner the battery will kick off. So while that sounds a little fishy, I'm learning that this is actually how all batteries operate, so Oupes' specs on this are correct. Let's see if the battery will run my little rice maker. It looks like it draws 444 watts. Perfect. Oupes says this battery will put out 600 watts with a surge of 1,000 watts. The battery management system is supposed to have overload protection. So let's see what happens if we plug in a 700 watt water heater. So it ran it for a little bit, but then the surge kicked off and the battery management system took over and gave us an overload code. So that's good. Okay, let's try cold and low, see what happens here. No, it won't do hot. So good to know. You could run a blow dryer on low and cool, probably long enough to get your hair dry. Okay, now let's test this coffee maker. It runs right at about 600 watts. Let's see just how accurate the 600 watt rating is. Oh, just over 600. Wow. And it's gonna keep running it looks like.
A few moments later.
Good job, little battery. It ran the coffee maker at just over 600 watts. So that's pretty cool. Its rating of 600 watts is not quite accurate, but in a good way. That it'll run just a little over 600 watts. Very cool. So this is great for camping, but what about when the power goes out? Will it power my freezer here? Yep. Looks like it's drawing about 300 and this says 308. The battery says 313 watts. I know it fluctuates a little bit, maybe goes up to about 360 or so. And the battery's putting out 110 volts. So yeah, this says it'll run the freezer for 2 hours. So that'll at least help in a power outage. Okay, the most important test for any battery is, will it run the diesel heater? Let's see, will it do it? The blower always starts usually, and the real test is whether or not the fuel pump will turn on. Oh, that's the fuel pump. Looks like it's gonna turn on. Yeah, fantastic. It's got 13.5 volts. Yeah, it's happy. All right, guys, you know what time it is. Let's see if it will power my keyboard. Yes, it does. That means it's time for a song about the Oupes battery. Let's see here. It'll power you through the night. The Oupes portable battery system. Then you know you'll be alright. Alright, there you go. Not quite a song, almost. Okay, here's my second idea. Because, how do you pronounce the thing? Well, it's not oops. It's not oops, it's Oupes. So there's my jingle for Oupes. After all the testing, now it's time for the pros and cons. Let's do the cons first. There's no app to monitor the battery. I wish the screen showed the input and output at the same time. I wish there was a setting to keep the screen on. And it's a little heavier than a lithium-ion battery. The charging port is only a DC barrel. It doesn't have the red and black Anderson connector port. So depending upon your solar needs, that may or may not be a drawback for you. And it's a little large since the handle doesn't fold down. Okay, here are the pros. Lithium iron phosphate is a safer, longer-lasting battery than lithium-ion. Rubber feet keep it from sliding around. It will power devices a little over its rated 600 watts. The double power input means it can charge really quickly. 3.5 hours to charge to 80% is really great. The battery management system helps protect the battery. The USB outlets are quick charge 3.0 outlets. And the DC port will power my diesel heater since it's 12 volt 10 amp. And I really like that all the outlets are on the front and the charging port is on the side. I think this setup is really convenient. So really, there aren't many cons when it comes to this battery. All in all, I think it's one of the best batteries I've tested so far. So, there you have it, the Oupes battery. Make sure you check the description for some discount codes for this, and hit the subscribe button to be notified of when I put out new videos. And thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you next time.